Hello, friends. This is Vitaly Portnikov. According to the British newspaper The Telegraph, U.S. President Donald Trump is increasingly beginning to view Russian President Vladimir Putin as a greater obstacle to achieving peace than his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky. Sources in the White House note that Trump attempted to engage the Russian leader using a carrot-and-stick approach, but has now effectively run out of carrots for Putin. It is worth recalling, friends, that the American president offered his Russian counterpart exceptionally favorable terms for exiting the Russo-Ukrainian war. After all, who else would propose that the United States recognize Russia's claim to annexed Crimea, thereby undermining the very foundations of international law established after World War II? Who else would be prepared to allow Putin to retain control over occupied territories and even discuss the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from parts of the Donetsk region that remain under the control of Ukraine's defense forces? And who else would offer the lifting of sanctions on the Russian economy, opening the door to the restoration of Russia's military potential in the years ahead? Yet, as we can see, Putin rejected these proposals from Donald Trump. This is because his real objective is to continue the war against our country and to destroy the Ukrainian state itself. The Russian leader perceives negotiations with the new American administration merely as a way to buy time and prolong the war. And it appears that Trump is beginning to understand this. The seizure of a Russian tanker has become another signal to Putin that the time available to him to accept Trump's proposed terms is rapidly running out. Moreover, despite the fact that during their most recent phone conversation, rather than discussing the agreements reached between Trump and Zelensky at Mar-a-Lago, the Russian leader chose to speak about alleged Ukrainian drone attacks on his residence, the White House nevertheless forwarded the Mar-a-Lago proposals to the Kremlin. Putin now has only a few weeks to respond, or to refuse to respond, to the proposals coordinated by the American and Ukrainian presidents. The ball is now in the Kremlin's court. Naturally, intense efforts are underway in Moscow to continue stalling and ignoring the proposals put forward by the United States and Ukraine. But such tactics may lead to significantly increased pressure on the Russian Federation. Another serious warning to Putin is the possibility that the U.S. Congress may soon pass legislation granting Trump the authority to impose tariffs of up to 500% on countries that continue purchasing Russian oil. Of course, I do not believe Trump would immediately apply such measures against a country like the People's Republic of China. A trade war with Beijing is the last thing Trump would want ahead of congressional elections. However, there are many other countries that continue to buy Russian oil, and they will come to understand that further cooperation with Russian oil companies, even via the so-called shadow fleet, could have catastrophic consequences for their entire economies. As a result, not only individual refineries, but also national governments will begin to block such purchases. Even in China's case, major oil corporations will likely seek to reduce their reliance on Russian oil in order to avoid preemptive U.S. sanctions. Thus, this legislation could serve as an effective deterrent, even if the American president never formally invokes its mechanisms. What we see, therefore, is a set of pressure tools available to the United States should Putin remain unwilling to pursue a path toward peace. These include tougher sanctions against Russia itself and against those who sponsor its energy sector. Without these energy sponsors, Putin would have choked on his own oil long ago. This pressure also includes demonstrating the ability to act against Russia's so-called shadow fleet, not only through sanctions imposed on individual tankers, which could go on indefinitely, but also through the physical seizure of such vessels. This raises transportation costs to such a degree that shipping Russian oil to countries like China, India, or Brazil may soon become economically unviable. All of this creates an environment in global trade in which Russian oil is increasingly seen as a dangerous commodity.
What should Putin do under such circumstances? Logically, he should seek agreements with the American president to prevent his economy from coming under extreme pressure and to avoid conditions that could lead not merely to economic collapse, but to the dismantling of the Putin regime itself. Like any regime, as we see in Iran or Venezuela, it relies on internal social stability. Without it, citizens begin to ask whether they need a different political system capable of ensuring their survival, let alone prosperity. But Putin is not someone who looks for correct answers to difficult questions. It is evident that the strike using the Oreshnik missile against the Lviv region is precisely the type of response the American president can expect from his Russian counterpart. Putin will attempt to intimidate the West into believing that it must negotiate on his terms or face further escalation. Such escalation could extend beyond Ukraine to neighboring European countries, placing the United States in an increasingly difficult position regarding the security of its allies. The key question is who will exert greater pressure and who will be prepared for greater escalation in 2026. The future trajectory, not only of the Russo-Ukrainian war, but of global security in these dangerous years, will depend on that readiness. Thank you, friends. Stay with this channel, subscribe to it, follow my social media, and support the project through Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, or YouTube sponsorships. I wish you victory and peace. Good luck.